Amazon has officially turned off their FBA prep operations. This is a massive change and it's going to cause a major disruption. Amazon's infrastructure is not built for prep. It never was. There is now these specialized services built just for a brand. What is Amazon going to do in that instance? We don't know yet, right? Are they going to prep it and charge? I don't know. Amazon has officially turned off their FBA prep operations. This means if you're a merchant going into next year, you will not be allowed to utilize Amazon's prep services. This is a massive change and it's going to cause a major disruption. In this video, I'm going to be breaking down what this change actually means, why Amazon went through with this decision, and how to plan ahead to make sure that your Amazon operations are not impacted going into next year. So first and foremost, what does Amazon turning off FBA prep services actually mean and some of the official timelines? So first and foremost, Amazon has recently announced that they are turning off prep operations. Their official memo is off the basis of they're changing their direction of what they want to be focusing on, their core competency, which is fulfillment, not prep. And on top of that, they have seen that over the years between their training on compliance and along with great partners and vendors like AMZ Prep, they don't feel that there's a need to be able to doing this anymore. Now, personally, what I've saw more than anything is that prep is incredibly difficult. For context, we prep tens of millions of items on a monthly basis, and it is one of the most challenging parts of our business model because of the variability, the high touch model. And for Amazon, it's just not a good fit. They'll make a lot more money in the business of fulfillment versus the prep. The reason that Amazon even begun offering prep was that because of Amazon's rigorous compliance a few years ago, it was really difficult for a 3PL, a brand doing it themselves, a reseller, to be able to understand the intricacies, figure out how to get it there, and make sure they're not getting dinged with Amazon's compliance and chargebacks and so forth. And I think what Amazon's seen over time was that prep model was more of a byproduct. It was a servicing model to help get the fulfillment. And they're confident enough from a compliance standpoint and the partners and almost the category of prep that has been built, it's just not a service that they need to prioritize anymore. Now, they've officially rolled out that as of January 2026, they will no longer be doing any prep. So if you're utilizing Amazon FBA for labeling, polybagging, bubble wrapping, co-packing, any sort of high-touch prep services before it gets to Amazon's distribution centers, this is where you're going to get caught and you'll have to be able to look for a secondary solution. Just for a second here, let's just define prep so we're all on the same page. When we think about prep, right, specifically in our operations, prep means that product coming in is product going out. So in an instance, when we're working with a brand, maybe a CPG brand, an e-com brand, whatever it might be, say we work with a water bottle company. Traditionally, why they might use our prep services is that there might be a few instances, right? Number one, they need to label every single item going to Amazon. They might need to polybag them. They need to bubble wrap the glass bottles. Maybe they sell hot sauces, so they need to bubble wrap the items. We might need to co-pack it, meaning they sell 2-packs or 4-packs or 6-packs. There's some sort of high touch movement that either one, they don't want their manufacturer or co-packer doing. That's scenario one. Scenario number two is maybe the 3PL can't do it, right? That's another instance. And Amazon just kind of offered as a byproduct. So if you're a brand and your 3PL didn't want to do it or it's really expensive, you could just ship it all to Amazon. They would label and handle everything, and then it was compliant. And it's not the cheapest, right? So Amazon's charging, if you're doing labeling with them, they'll charge 55 cents. If you're doing polybagging, it's closer to 70 cents. So some of your prep fees could be like $1 or $2 per item. That's really kicks into the margin. Most brands just never really thought into it. It was a cost of selling on Amazon's operations, and it is a huge line item on their expense when they're actually looking at it inside of Seller Central. So Amazon is going to be losing a ton of money from this decision, but at the end of the day, it is a very low margin, tight operation with a lot of variability, and it's very manual, right? The other challenge with prep as a whole is it bottlenecks Amazon's FCs, right? So if they need to go and label 100,000 items, that could take a week. And because of that, that's going to stall operation. Because of that, that means backlogs at their FCs. They want product that's coming in and going out. So the faster in versus the faster out, that is their business model. That's where they make all their money, not doing this individual, call it onesies and twosies. So that's the current state. So, what's the hidden impact of this and Amazon making this decision going into 2026? There's a few things that you might end up seeing. Is number one, you might see a large change in total inbound times, could be for the greater or the worse, right? They are pulling a lot of their operations away from prep. They might be either prioritizing those resources for faster inbounds, or there might be gaps on their inbound FC processing because they might be laying off that division entirely, which is their prep division, which is technically a part of their inbound function at the Amazon warehouses. So that's number one. Number two is there could be a higher risk for chargebacks compliance. In the past, if your product wasn't compliant getting to Amazon, what they might end up doing is literally just prepping it on your behalf and they'll charge you the delta. So say you mislabeled an item or you didn't label it and it needed labeled, they would actually just go to their way, label the item. And honestly, most brands don't even see this, right? Like, it literally just happens. They'll charge a bill. It's nothing massive. It's 50, 60 cents a label. They'll do this and then they'll send you the total. So going into next year, because you don't have that, call it back fault, right? Like you don't have a net to be able to save you. There's a high chance of more errors, chargebacks, disputes, which could lead to longer check-in times and so forth as well. And lastly, more straight on inventory, right? So as product is getting in, if it's not compliant or maybe your 3PL can't do it or you try to do it yourself, if you're not fully compliant with Amazon's very strict rules and regulations, there's a chance that product might get caught in stranded inventory. So stranded inventory, it's basically no man's land inside of Amazon. And if you're prepping product wrong or it's flagged and needs to get changed or something else needs to happen, it will get stuck there and you have a high probability, if you haven't done prep before, that this is where the product could lie. Now, why this change could actually benefit merchants, I want to take a different perspective here, and it's more of an optimistic one of what this could mean for brands and merchants if they do it correctly. Is that, well, one, for AMZ Prep, massive opportunity, right? We built ourselves off of a prep infrastructure naturally because of our name. And so for us, right, we saw a huge influx of business over the past couple of weeks because of this new Amazon news coming out. So for us, great opportunity to win the market. And we've poised ourselves over the past 5 years to do exactly that. So like the team is firing on all cylinders. They're really excited. We're getting a ton of business in the door. And so check marks on our side. But for the merchant too, what we're seeing is that like, we might be 30, 40% less than what Amazon's charging, right? And there's a few reasons for that. And why this might actually be an opportunity for a brand is that Amazon's infrastructure is not built for prep. It never was. It was a byproduct, like I mentioned. So your idea of finding whether it's a 3PL or call it a prep center is that there is now these specialized services built just for a brand. So in the world of where we operate, there's things called 3PLs and there's things called prep centers. And they're actually a little bit different. So just hang on for a second. Is that when you think about a 3PL, this is a larger fulfillment center. Think of the ShipBobs of the world. We do a lot of that stuff as well. We have facilities just built for it, but it's traditionally high volume D2C, B2B to the retailers like Costco, Walmart, and so forth. Maybe they do Amazon, but it's usually a byproduct. And then there's prep centers. And that's what AMZ Prep actually started off as, was we only did Amazon prep work because we were so damn good at it. And so the entire operations might be an in and out workflow. Think of it in a more formal word like a crossdock, right? So a brand will send us right from their manufacturer. Some brands actually send from their 3PL. Even though we are a 3PL on paper, they send it from another 3PL who maybe is built for their D2C and their B2B. We receive it, we co-pack, we do the kitting in high volume production, we label it, we make sure it's compliant, and then we send it right back out the door. We're traditionally not even storing it. Or if we do, we might only store 30, 60, 90 days worth, and we become almost like a bulk replenishment hub for Amazon, I guess is the best way to say it. And the reason I'm explaining this is that over the years since Amazon rolled out their prep services, there have been these specialized verticals and services like AMZ Prep built for this exact scenario. So what this means for a brand is that traditionally, one, you can get cost savings. So that's going to be major. Two is that you can get a lot faster check-in times. If you're getting Amazon to prep it, you might be adding 5, 10, 15 days to your inbound life cycle versus us. If we're prepping it, we can prep, 50,000 a day, 100,000 a day. So it makes the production speed a lot faster, which means faster check-in times, which means cash flow. There's a whole, secondary impact that happens from, faster speed and prep into the Amazon facilities. And now more than anything, you have the control, right? So depending on how you approach this, you now have more control to create more unique products. You can enroll in Amazon's transparency program, which is a big plus that Amazon wasn't doing in the past in the labeling. So there is a lot of pros. More importantly, there's cost savings if you do it correctly, and faster check-in times. Now, how do you vet a 3PL for this new Amazon change going into next year when, the official change takes place? The key thing to keep in mind is that Amazon is a whole different beast. So just a really quick scenario is that if you think about Amazon's rules around Amazon inbounds, right? So there's a weight restriction on every box. There's a items per box restriction. There's a ASIN level limit for how many you can send in. The box needs to be a certain thickness. If you're polybagging, it needs to be a certain thickness inside the polybag. There needs to be a suffocation label on every single one. There needs to be a certain corresponding FNSKU, the type of bubble wrap you use, the type of packaging you put into the box. There's 101 pieces of this equation. The reason I'm saying this is you can think about it like a very, very difficult retailer, right? So it is like the Walmarts of the world. So if you're not used to doing this compliant, right? Even the place that you put the FNSKU label, which is basically an Amazon barcode, it's called FNSKU, where you put that on the product matters a ton, right? And you need to make sure that all the other barcodes are covered up on the boxes and items. These are all check balances that need to get handled if you're going to be sending stock into Amazon. And the reason that I'm saying all this is that it is truly not as easy as slapping a label on a box. That, whether it's a 3PL, whoever else it might be, the risk that we're seeing with some brands is they're just expecting their 3PL can do this work or they know how to do it. But that could pose a ton of risk. And sometimes for brands, these are multi-million-dollar mistakes because if it's prepped wrong and it inbounds incorrectly, you might be screwed, right? Like it might go to stranded inventory. What is Amazon going to do in that instance? We don't know yet, right? Are they going to prep it and charge? I don't know. If they do, how long will it take? Will that impact out of stocks? These are parts of the equations that merchants need to be very, very careful about. That it is not a one size fits all. Prep is very difficult and compliance of prep is a whole different beast. So keep this in mind when you're looking at a 3PL partner is understand the checklist. What prep process do they have? Do they have prep production happening, right? This could mean kitting, labeling, bundling. These are all pieces of the equation and they need to understand Seller Central. So for example, our team, we're trained on Seller Central training documents. We have the Amazon team come in, once a month and we're doing trainings with them. We're always pivoting and adjusting because Amazon's rules are also changing on pallet level, on case level. So we're actively adopting. Now we're obsessed with this because we do so much of it. Just these finer details, make sure you're asking the right questions around what's your current SLAs for Amazon, right? Will it take a few days? Will it take a few weeks? How much Amazon work do you do? Do you have references? What facilities do you ship to? Do you do load consolidation with other merchants? Like these are the things that you want to ask. Now, how pricing models are a little bit different as we go into this new change is that traditionally, when you think about someone like an AMZ prep or call it like a prep production center, which is a big piece of our business, is that we might charge an all-inclusive rate. So if you work with a 3PL, one of your challenges might be as you get into this world, and if you just expect your 3PL to start prepping product for Amazon, like 2-packs and 4-packs or polybagging, is that the challenge is that their pricing will slide up really quickly, right? Because they almost charge as if it's like an e-commerce order. So they'll charge a first pick, then a second pick, right? So they'll charge whatever, $2 plus 30 cents plus X and Y plus a polybag. It ends up becoming this, call it death by 1,000 cuts. And on top of that, it might not be fully compliant for Amazon if they don't know the rules. So you got to be delicate with how you approach this and also making sure the model comes in. But for example, with AMZ Prep, what we'll do is we'll model out, we basically have like a really simple, it looks like Amazon's rate card for prep. So we'll have like an all-inclusive fee for the receiving, the prep, the pack, the labeling, like the FNSKU labeling, and then shipping back out the door. And then we have all of these like plus. So if you need a poly bag, if you need bubble wrap, it's literally just like a plus whatever, 20 cents hypothetically, or 30 cents, right? So this way is going to be a lot easier. Now, if you're working with a 3PL that isn't, equipped with the Amazon stuff, right? Because they're going to have to actually touch every single item. The key is make sure they model out some pricing scenarios for you. So give them the scenario, make sure they give it to you formally over like a quote or an email, whatever else it might be, just so you can understand the full and cost. There's a high likelihood that it's going to be more expensive than what you're paying with Amazon. Either you can negotiate your way down and try to get some sort of like flat all-inclusive rates, or you might actually use a separated solution, right? So like what I was mentioning before, where you have a 3PL, Maybe they continue the D2C operations or the B2B operations, and then you have an AMZ prep, which is extended. And so what will happen is that we will just do a full pallet order. So maybe once a month, you'll send a full container to our facility. And then from our facility, we'll drop orders automatically to Seller Central, right? And then we'll do the kitting, the prep, the pack. And even though you have to make one more move, we're faster, it's going to be cheaper, and we can inbound directly to Amazon with our middle mile. So there's a lot of benefits to do it if we approach it in the right way, but something to keep in mind. I think the last part to mention is the technology piece. So what we've done in the Amazon world is that we have this thing called, it's our FBA prep. It's a part of our prep commerce technology suite. And so what it does is that we integrate into Seller Central. We produce these Seller Central labels. We do all this, right? Now with your 3PL, what might end up happening is that your team will have to create the Seller Central plan. You'll have to request all the prep now moving forward because Amazon's not going to do that. You'll then have to take all those labels, drop them probably in the WMS. You have to log into their WMS like a Ship Hero or a NetSuite or whatever they use. Email them the labels, right? And then there's going to be this really awkward back and forth email thread of like, dims and weights. Here's the packaging details. And there's a subject line with the FBA ID and then this huge email thread. And so what we've built on the FBA prep side is we have a software that creates the shipment plans automatically. So it'll create the shipment plans, drop the orders, do the processing. We just want to cut out the email back and forth. And so there's these very unique things that we have to ask, right? That maybe a 3PL can't do just because we've specialized in this Amazon world. So again, ask about the technology. Do they have a platform that can do this? If not, what's the process, right? And then what's the turnaround because of how manual this is? All things need to keep in mind. Last thing I would suggest is that understand what happens if it gets to Amazon incorrectly. Right? Do they have chargebacks in place? Are they going to refund you if they mislabeled products or they didn't pack it correctly to Amazon's compliance regulations and standards, right? What happens if something goes wrong? We all believe that nothing goes wrong. This is logistics. Everything goes wrong. You have to make sure that you prep for it. And Amazon is a different beast. They will lose inventory. There will be issues with inbounding. There will be label challenges. It's just the nature of the beast. So keep this in mind. Make sure you have an agreement with your 3PL. What's agreed, what's not agreed, are you going to share the cost if something goes wrong inside of Amazon, if it's mislabeled, if it's missing inventory, how are you going to deal with it basically is going to be the key challenge, along with how long it takes them to get that stock to Amazon. My overall prediction based off, everything that's happening, this Amazon news caused a lot of rumbling in the space. I think for the overall industry, it is a net positive, right? And I'm biased because we're building the largest Amazon prep logistics infrastructure globally. But what this means as a brand and merchant is a lot of different things. And I think it also allows you to almost reevaluate your supply chain in real time. We naturally start to gravitate, brands do, around this over-reliance on Amazon. They'll kind of give Amazon the whole business and expect nothing to go wrong. Amazon's infrastructure is built for very certain things. Them cutting prep out of the business is a clear indication of them focusing on their strengths and doubling down. I think the power and value of this is that as Amazon starts to cut back, it's a good reflection time as a brand to say, whoa, I kind of put all my eggs in that basket with Amazon. Amazon doesn't want to do that business. It was probably impacting our supply chain anyway. So it allows you to reevaluate your supply chain, potentially look at new vendors to be able to cost like an AMZ prep or someone specialized to do the Amazon production process. And then number 3, you might be able to enroll in new programs, right? Amazon Transparency is dominating and it's a huge program if you have the production and capability to do so. It can allow for brand control. There's a lot of key benefits to do it, but I do think that as we get into the new year and the following, there'll be a huge impact on inbound times and compliance challenges inside of Amazon because brands thought their 3PL could do it and they absolutely couldn't, or they tried to do it themselves. And, that is going to happen. It's going to cause a bottleneck happening in January, February is what I predict to happen. And we'll probably see a huge surcharge in surplus in brands that are interested in working with us. And I think the last piece will be that Amazon will start to pull back on other categories that they're not prioritizing. Amazon just pulled out of Google Ads last week. They just pulled out of their FBA prep. There'll be other pieces of their supply chain that they don't want to prioritize on that they thought could work. They tested it. They decided to pull back. What is that inside the Amazon supply chain, right? So keep that in mind. Keep your eyes open and your ideas friendly, and don't over-index on the beast itself at the end of the day. Amazon can be a credible tool and partner if used correctly, but make sure it's for the right part of the business and the margins are intact to sustain it. So this is my rant a little bit about what's happening for next year. Come prepped, be prepared, and we'll see how it goes. And we'll do a recap probably next year to see how it goes in January. But I'm super excited to see how this actually plays out. Thanks.